Hi, my name's Dave Bush, and welcome to the Internet, or the Information Superhighway, or you may have heard it called the Data Autobahn, or my favorite term of all is coined by science fiction novelist William Gibson, cyberspace. And you may be familiar with some of those terms, maybe all of them, because they are plastered everywhere you look, in all of the popular media, in newspapers and magazines, and on the TV, and on the radio. Everywhere you look, you're hearing about the Internet. And maybe your kids are coming home from school talking about the Internet or asking you about it, or maybe your parents are coming home from school asking you about the Internet or speaking about it. And it may seem a little confusing. You may feel a little bit like Rip Van Winkle. One morning you woke up and the Internet was everywhere and you think, was I asleep for 20 years? What happened? Where did all this come from? It may seem a little mysterious. So our goal today is to demystify the Internet. And we want to demystify the Internet on two levels. We want to understand the Internet. Where did it come from? What is it? Who owns it? Who controls it? That sort of thing. We want to understand the Internet. And once we understand the Internet, we want to access the Internet. And what underlies both of our goals are some basic questions. And the main question is, so what? So what? What's in it for me? Or maybe the most important question, the most probing question would be, as someone that's not a computer nerd or not a computer engineer, because maybe my specialty and my skills lie in some other area, how can I even hope to use the Internet? And I think it's the answer to that question that will provide the underlying fundamental foundation for our understanding of the Internet. And the answer to that question is this: the Internet is not about computers. It's not about ROMs and RAMs and SXs and DXs and megabytes, gigabytes, and kilobytes and RISCs and CISCs, stuff like that. The Internet is about communication. It's to facilitate communication, to break down barriers to communication, to break down the barriers to communication that we've been with since the beginning of time, and that is physical distance and geography. Where am I located, and I want to communicate to somebody that's a long way away. And that's what the Internet is about, to facilitate communication. To understand the Internet, you need to understand what a computer network is. And to understand a computer network, I'm going to just use a really absurdly simple example. And that example would be, my computer is plugged into your computer. They're connected with a physical wire. And once they're connected with a physical wire, we can trade files back and forth. And those files may be things I can load into my word processor or look at in my graphics program. Or maybe it's just a note that you're sending me that says, I'm going on vacation, watch my house. Or come over for dinner. Or you missed your flight, you better hustle. Something like that. Now take that example one step further. Now my computer's plugged into your computer. The neighbor next door wants to keep up with the Joneses, so they plug in. And now all three of us can communicate. Take that example to the extreme. People all over the world with their computers actually physically plugged into one another, or maybe connected with satellite connections and things like that, but connected to facilitate communication so that we can trade around files. And that's what the Internet is. Now, once these computers are all connected with one another, they have to speak the same language, because some of you may have Macintoshes, some of you may have IBM-compatible personal computers, some of you may have some other type of computers, because those aren't the only two. It doesn't matter what kind of computer you have. All the computers on the Internet speak a common language. And that language is TCP/IP. And you don't need to write that down or ever memorize it, but as you continue your involvement with the Internet, it's a term you'll hear thrown around. And it means Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. And again, you don't really need to know it, but what I want you to not be is I want you to not be intimidated by it when you hear it. TCP/IP just is this common language that all these computers are communicating with so that they can all speak and trade this information around. It's about files. That's what the Internet is about. I said that all these computers are connected together so that we can trade around files. And that is the core of the Internet, is files. Files reside on your computer. They reside on someone's computer across the world. And by getting to those files, I might be able to load something that's useful to me. Maybe a research document, or maybe you're sending me a message. So the Internet is all about files. And these files exist on these various computers all around the world. So the first thing is files. The second thing is searching for those files, because there's so many of them, and some of them don't even make sense to me or are not useful for me. There's so many of them, I need ways to search for those files. And once I use my ways to search for the files and I find files that are of interest to me, I need a method to get those files from your computer to my computer. And that's the internet. The internet is a bunch of computers all plugged together. Files on all those different computers all around the world. Ways for me to look for those files. And once I find files that are of interest to me, ways to retrieve those files so that I can then put those files to use. The files, like I said, they could be a message from the boss, a message from a customer or a client, message from somebody. Maybe it's not a message, maybe it's a program. So that's really essentially what the internet is. Now, where did it come from? It actually started back in 1969 with the Advanced Research Project Agency, ARPA. And that's another term you'll hear thrown around, ARPANET. And it's no special computer or anything. It's just the name of this agency in 1969 that started out as merely 4 universities across the country. Much like the example I posed earlier of just my computer plugged into your computer, some people at different universities across the country thought, well, gosh, if we had our computers plugged into each other, then we wouldn't have to use overnight mail to exchange research documents and papers and thoughts and ideas and talk on the telephone. I could just go right into your computer, if they were connected together, and get this research information. So these 4 universities connected their computers together. As time went on, by the time the mid-70s rolled around and kind of into the mid-80s, a lot of universities jumped on this bandwagon. And they all combined their computers, or all connected them together to facilitate communication. At the same time, the Department of Defense was really looking at the internet, and that's what it was, the internet. They were looking at it because in the event of a nuclear war, they wanted to explore ways to communicate. So if one city got bombed or something like that happened, there would still be communication channels. So the Department of Defense was looking at it as also a method to facilitate communication. By the time 1991 rolled around, the Department of Defense wasn't as interested in it as a point of strategy. The universities were still using it, but at this point, about 1991, commercial use started to proliferate. Computer companies started going on the internet to exchange information. And at that point, if you were a rather sophisticated user, you could go to a computer company and get some information. And then just in the short time since that started to happen, it has become less computer companies and all sorts of companies going onto the internet to facilitate communication, talk to their clients, get information back from their clients. Individuals then started using it to talk to their family. I sent email to a cousin of mine in Australia, 17-hour time difference, like $5 a minute to talk. Sent email to her. She could read it at her leisure and reply to me. She replied to me about an hour later, so she must have been up late. But that's an idea of where the internet has come from. How many users are there today? In 1969, it started out with 4 computers. How many are there today? Somewhere between, in the neighborhood of 10 million to 40 million users. And that's a big gap, 10 to 40 million. But there's no way of really absolutely measuring it. There's so many people, and it's not controlled. It's not one big company. There is no Internet Incorporated. So it's an estimate's 10 to 40 million. And that might be really low. Who owns the internet? Consider that question. And to answer that question, go back and consider how it started. It started with universities plugging their computers into one another, and then the Department of Defense getting on the bandwagon. So who owns the internet? I do. You do. We all do. Our tax dollars paid for it. It's our internet. Much like the highway superstructure, the actual regular highways. We all own them. I own them. You own them. Our taxpayer dollars paid for them. So that's who owns the internet. But again, there's no Internet Incorporated. There is an agency called the Internet Architectural Board, which kind of oversees the internet, plays referee, if you will. But that's an idea of where the internet came from. So our understanding of the internet, the core understanding is it's about files on many different computers. The computers are plugged into each other via hard wires or maybe satellites. They're all speaking the same language so that no matter what kind of computer you have, they can trade these files back and forth. And then you have ways to search for those files and ways to retrieve those files. So with our newfound understanding of the internet, let me pique your curiosity. Let me tease you a little bit. Let's go visit some places on the internet, considering what we just learned, which is we're going to go to some computer somewhere, retrieve a file from that computer, and look at it. Now, I've never been to Minneapolis, but let's go look at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. We're at their World Wide Web homepage. And you can see it's got a little pretty graphic there. And this is an excellent demonstration of what media is and what media is on the internet. It's not just yucky old boring text. It's rich text. When I say rich text, I mean text that's bolded and formatted and highlighted and italicized. And it's not just rich text. It's rich graphics. It's graphics like this that are in color. And in other places, we'll see video. And you can click on places and hear sound. So that's why it's hypermedia and not just yucky old text. And here's a beautiful graphic at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts homepage. I wonder what kind of pictures they have here that we could see. Here's a general index of places we could go and look at on their page. General information about the Institute, what's hot. We get information on their exhibitions and galleries, events they're having. You could sign up to be a member. You can sign up online for membership. You can go to their museum shop and purchase something. And here it says, send a free email postcard from the Institute. And it says not found. And this is like getting a busy signal on the internet. Sometimes you'll click on some place and it won't be able to go and get it because they're updating it right now. And it's much like calling on a telephone and getting a busy signal. So I click on back and I go back to their page. And I could go look at anything, but let's go take a look at another World Wide Web homepage. And this one's not a museum. We're going to a computer in a different part of the country. This one's in Washington, D.C., and this is at the White House. We're going to go visit the White House World Wide Web homepage. Again, consider what we're doing. We're going out to that computer, and on that computer has a file that is of interest to us. We're going to download that file, and we're going to look at it. You'll notice that as the A in the upper corner there spins around, that indicates to me that I'm still in the process of retrieving this file, me getting it from the White House. The neat thing is that as it spins, I can still see what I've got. I don't have to wait until the thing's done spinning. I don't have to wait until I get it all to look at it. I can see what I've got. So as it continues to load, we can read. And we can see that here at the White House, there's some neat things that you could do. You could click on what's new to see what's new at the White House. Click on the publications. There are many different publications, the Congressional Journal, things of that nature. The First Family, the Executive Branch. And if you click on tours down here, you can go and get pictures and images of the White House, get a little walk-through tour of the White House, and you can click on a little picture and you can hear Bill Clinton give you a welcome message. So you could get sound and you could see a video walkthrough of the White House, or you could come down here to the bottom and click on a Citizen's Interactive Handbook and maybe read the Vice President's welcome message. So that's the White House homepage, and there's a lot of exploration that we could do there, but we have another stop on our virtual tour of the internet, because now we've looked at the Minneapolis Institute of Fine Arts. We've looked at the White House, and you may be saying, well, how did I come up with those addresses? How did I get there? Well, I got there much like you would get there if you were in a new town and you wanted to find a new place to get pizza, or a new restaurant, or a place to take your suit to get dry cleaned, or anything of that nature. You'd open up the Yellow Pages. And what I've done here is I've gone to the World Wide Web Yellow Pages, which is just one of many World Wide Web references where you can go into one of these pages and search. And what I'm going to do down here is move down, and in this box I could type in whatever I want. I could type in, for instance, IBM and search the Yellow Pages for IBM. and it goes out and it would search and bring up all the places related to IBM, computers all over the world, and I could click on one and go out to it. And that's how you find places on the internet. You look them up in the yellow pages or other search type pages like Yahoo, and they're all types of these pages. In fact, when you get to IBM's page, you can click on a place that takes you to a random place on the internet every day. So you could visit this same page every day, click on a spot, and it would take you out to a new spot, a different spot, every single day. In fact, I did go to IBM, and I had heard that IBM was somehow involved in a project with their IBM partner in Germany, rebuilding the Dresden Cathedral. So I wanted to find out a little bit more about the Dresden Cathedral, and I did. I went to their page, and they had a whole page on the Dresden Cathedral and how it's being remodeled and rebuilt. And I saw a very interesting little thing that I could click on. And when I clicked on it, it downloaded an animation sequence of going actually through the Dresden Cathedral, showing you what it looks like and giving you an idea of the kind of work they're doing. And you can go to different spots on the internet and download little animation sequences or full-fledged video. So we've seen now a couple of examples of rich text in many different fonts and colors. We've seen pictures, and here we're seeing an animation sequence. And there are all types of other places on the internet. Business-related pages, like Federal Express has a page, and you can go to their page and type in the tracking number from the package you sent and see where the package is. AT&T has a page, and you can go to the page and type in a company's name and search their 1-800 number directory. Many of us, especially in business, you've done that through the telephone. Sprint has a page. So there are business pages, there are research pages. You could research the Civil War, Alice in Wonderland, as we saw the Minneapolis Institute of Fine Art, and, of course, the White House. So there are many different pages, and I've kind of teased you now, and you may be thinking, wow, how can I get the video? How do I get to the internet yellow pages? How do I get to FedEx's page? How do I get access to the internet? Now we understand the internet. We've looked a little bit at the actual internet, but how did I do that? How do I get access to the internet? Well, how do you make a long-distance phone call? What do you need to do to make a long-distance phone call? You need a telephone. You need long-distance service so that the telephone can dial out. And you need a method of communication. As humans, we need a brain to use the telephone so that as we speak, we know what we're saying and we can hear what comes back. And you need the same elements to access the internet. You need a service provider, which is much like a long-distance company, someone to connect you to the internet. You need not just a telephone now, you need a computer and a modem. And you need some brains, or in this case some software, so that the computer can communicate through the access and through the account provider. So you need three things, just like you would need three things to make a long-distance telephone call. Let's talk a little bit about accounts. Going back to our understanding of the internet, our fundamental understanding, it's just a bunch of computers plugged into one another. Well, some of those connections that connect these computers that are plugged into one another are permanent. Some are temporary. Those people that are on, or companies that are on the internet permanently are servers, and they send out information. And when we just looked at some internet pages there, what we were going to pages that were permanently on the internet. But we were on the internet temporarily. And that's what you'll be doing, is you'll be signing up through a service provider or through an account. You will be connecting temporarily to a computer that is on the internet permanently. And there are a couple different types of accounts that you can get. On the low end, there's a shell account. And when you get a shell account, you can now dial a phone number, have your software dial a specific phone number, and you're on the internet. And you've got just a little prompt. just a little minus sign looking thing. And now you can type in all these commands and you can go all over the world. Of course, what's the limiting factor there? What commands do I type in? Well, if you were a Unix programmer or adept in the Unix operating system, it probably wouldn't be that difficult. But since most of us have specialties and focuses outside of computers and programming, a shell account might be a little too much or too little for too much. That is, you'd have to invest too much time to learn Unix to type in these crazy commands. So what you want to do is get an account that will allow you to have a layer between you and those Unix commands so that you can point and click on things intuitively, and it takes care of all these crazy commands for you. And that's a SLIP or a PPP account. And that account, and that's just a protocol, the Serial Line Interface Protocol, SLIP or PPP, is just a type of account. And again, you don't need to know that or how it works. You just need to know that's a type of account that puts you on the internet so that you can attach to one of these permanent computers that's permanently attached to the internet or a server. And that with that type of account, you can now use this graphical software. So you don't have to learn these crazy Unix commands. You can now use this graphical software. So that's the type of account you will all want to get. Now, most accounts don't actually say, hey, we're a SLIP account. They say, we offer World Wide Web and email, and we have a graphical interface. On the other end of things, there's permanent connections like ISDN lines, T1s, T2s, and you don't need to know what those are. What you need to know is that you may hear those terms, and those are terms, types of lines, and types of connections that you could get that are permanent. High-speed permanent lines. But as individuals and even small businesses, we typically don't use those type of high-end accounts. So on the low end, you've got a shell account. And you've got to type in all these commands. On the high end, you've got these permanent connections on T1s and trunk lines and T2s and ISDNs and whoa. And in the middle, you've got this SLIP account, which allows you to get enough information by hooking up to one of these servers to use graphical software. So now we've got an account. Well, we don't quite have the account yet. How do you actually get the account now that you know what one is? There are a couple of different ways to get an account. You can simply do a little research and call these different service providers and say, send me information on how I sign up and get an account with you. It's kind of crazy. It used to be all you had to worry about was how to get the cheapest long-distance service. Now it's, how do I get the cheapest internet access? Well, you'll have to compare a couple of different providers. And you can call them. They advertise in magazines and on TV and all over the place. You can call them and ask them to send you information. Or you can go to the newsstand right now and buy a magazine. And a lot of times those magazines have discs in them. And you put the disc in and it helps you set up the account and actually comes with the software that you'll need to run that account, which is what we'll talk about next. Or you can talk to a friend. Chances are you've all got at least one friend that's on the internet, and you could say, what account do you use? What do you like about it? What do you dislike about it? And your friend might say, well, gosh, if you sign up on my account, I'll get a couple of free hours. Because that's how these accounts are billed. There's a monthly fee, typically something between $1 to $20 a month, flat fee. And then there's an hourly charge. And that's anywhere from $0 an hour to, say, $5 an hour. And that's how they bill this internet. Once you've got an account, now you need equipment. Just like once you get long-distance service, now you need the telephone. Well, the equipment you need to access your account is a computer. You need a Macintosh or an IBM. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what computer you have, because all these computers can talk the TCP/IP, common language of the internet that we spoke about earlier. So it doesn't really matter what kind of computer. That computer will need a modem. Bottom line, get the fastest modem you can afford. And in 6 months, it won't be the fastest modem anymore. That's how fast the technology grows. And right now, get the fastest modem you can get. And it's not just a matter of convenience. You may think, well, having a fast modem is a matter of convenience. I can live with a cheaper modem that's slower. But remember, you're probably paying hourly. So paying a little extra for the fastest modem could actually end up saving you money down the road. So you get your account, you get your hardware, and now you need to pull it all together with some software. You need software on the computer to run the modem so that the modem can communicate through the account provider, talk TCP/IP, so that you can go out and get your files, retrieve them, and look at them and play with them. The software will either come with the account, or you'll just get an account with no software, and you'll have to mix and match your own software. You will need one piece of software for all the types of activities you can do on the internet. You'll need one piece of software to do what we were doing, to browse the World Wide Web. You'll need another piece of software to just transfer files and get programs and so forth from computer companies and do FTP. You'll need another piece of software to send and retrieve email. You'll need another piece of software to participate in news groups. Well, you could just get a very simple account that doesn't come with any software, and you can go out and buy the different pieces of software that you like and do this mix and match. It's kind of like buying a stereo. First, when you buy a stereo, when you're kind of when I was in high school, you get a little stereo. It's in a box. It's got 2 cassette decks and a turntable and a radio, and it's all in one box. And as your tastes become more refined, what you'll do is you'll go out and you'll buy a receiver. And then you'll buy a tape deck, and you'll kind of mix and match components. Well, one gets you a different level of satisfaction, and it's more suited to your own personal preference, that is mixing and matching components. The other is easier. A lot of the commercial providers, you'll get a disc out of a magazine, or you call them and ask them to send you a disc, and the disc not only gets you an account, but it gives you all the software that you need. So that's a consideration. You probably want to start out getting an account and getting an account that comes with all of the software that you need. Later, as your tastes become more refined, you can get just an account and you can mix and match components. A little bit of terminology you're going to hear. Download and upload. Download is the process of me receiving a file off of the internet, going and getting a file. I download it. I take it from here and bring it to my computer. Upload is the opposite of that, sending it. So I could upload and send a program out, or I could download and retrieve one. You'll hear the term server and client. A server is typically one of these computers that's permanently connected to the internet. And it just serves out these documents or these files that you're searching for and requesting. It's a server. You are then the client, one of these temporary connections, receiving these documents from the server. And sometimes the server might be called the host. You might hear the term surfing. And that's that process of looking at a web page and clicking somewhere on it and jumping from Minneapolis to Washington, D.C. and clicking on something in there and jumping to some other computer. You're kind of bouncing around from computer to computer. You're surfing the net. You'll hear the term bandwidth. The information that's coming in over the phone line through your modem into your computer is limited by the speed of the modem and actually how much information that line can carry. And that refers to bandwidth, and you can think of it like a pipe. A pipe can only hold so much water. And when that pipe has got all that water in it, you might have to get a few gallons, wait a while. So there's this bandwidth. In fact, if you've ever, like I have, had the pleasure of living in a really nice apartment building with too many people in it, and you go to take a shower and everyone else is taking a shower too, and you've got no water pressure, that's an example of bandwidth. Sometimes, during a busy part of the day, you'll go to a web page and it will take a while to download because everyone else is trying to get it also. That is this bandwidth limitation. Well, bandwidth, that limiting factor of bandwidth, as we become more technologically advanced, will decrease. And more bandwidth will become available, and speed will get faster and faster. And the other term you might hear is netiquette. Net etiquette or internet etiquette. What are the polite ways to do things? Would you go to someone's homepage? Would you go to the Minneapolis Institute of Fine Arts and do nothing, just leave your computer sitting there for an hour? Especially considering the issue of bandwidth. There are other people trying to get in there too, and if you're doing nothing, just sitting there, that's not really proper netiquette. You're slowing down the entire internet for everybody. If you were going in to do some email or you're involved in a news group, you might not want to, just like you wouldn't go into a party and see a group of people talking, just bust into the middle of them and say, "Hi, I'm Dave. How you doing? What are you eating? Nice tie, nice shoes." You probably wouldn't do that. You'd want to get acquainted with them, maybe get invited in. Well, you wouldn't go into a news group and just bust in and ask a bunch of questions. You'd want to read the FAQ, which is a term, another term that you'll hear a lot on the internet. FAQ stands for Frequently Asked Questions. And in all over the internet, on different subjects, there are compiled lists of FAQs, or frequently asked questions. And your obligation is to go and read the FAQs, or read the frequently asked questions, so that you don't take up bandwidth asking a question that's already been asked, although it's a good question, but it's already been asked and answered, and there's a place to get that. So first, you read the facts so that you're not taking up bandwidth asking and duplicating questions. So our goal was to demystify the internet by understanding what it is, just a network of computers all plugged in together, exchanging files. Where it came from, just these 4 little university computers exchanging information, and how they grew into what is now 10 to 40 million users. Who owns it? Nobody, everybody. Taxpayers paid for it. A component of our goal for demystifying the internet was accessing it. How do I get onto the internet? How do I access it? Well, you'll need an account, which you'll get by doing a little research, like walking across the street to a newsstand and buying a magazine. And in that magazine will most likely be an 800 number that you can call and get someone to send you software and account access. And even normally for the first month, they might even give it to you for free. You'll need the account. You'll need the computer. Doesn't really matter what kind you have as long as it speaks the common language of the internet, which is TCP/IP. And you'll need software to run the account. And in the beginning, the account will most likely come with all the software that you need. And that is the internet. And let me leave you with this thought. Thinking again that the internet's not about computers, it's about communication. Another component of the internet is it's not about what you know, but it's about how fast you can learn something new. And because the internet facilitates rapid communication in these times of rapidly advancing technological change, it will help you learn things quicker, research things faster, so that you can stay up to date on things. Thank you.